Myself up. I'd like to hear from Ed Fuller, if he wouldn't mind, about RENA and Goleta. I know his planning commission had a long meeting about a month or so ago, and I'm wondering what his thoughts are about it. If you wouldn't mind, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
yeah, we were basically briefed on the timetable for implementation, or to come up with our fulfillment of. But I don't think we've got our quota yet. But it's going to be about a 2 or 3 year process, and the city's preparing for it. I have, basic opposition to increasing, more people in our area. But the state is going to do what they're going to do, and we're just going to try and accommodate it as best we can. That's all, that's all I got to say. Any questions?
What is how much does Goleta have to plan for now on the present numbers?
Yeah, we don't have a number yet, as far as I know.
No, but I mean the 10 years ago number.
Right. I think it was like 1,800 or something, or 2,200, just off the top of my head. And I think we hit about, total around 900. We had a couple large market rate projects, Village of Los Caneros, downtown Goleta. What is it one out on not Ward Drive, but Kellogg.
Okay.
Right. So those fell in our RENA numbers, and I'm not sure if the Old Town Village, which actually is or Hollister Village, across from Costco, fell in that also. I think that was pre. I'm not sure, but I think that might have been pre this time around on RENA. We did get some lower income units from the self-help housing. I think it was building at the Village of Los Caneros, and also a redevelopment project on Kellogg, across from the park, the new park that was built there.
Okay, right.
But nothing in the very low ends, and we've got the zoning, and now we don't have the water, so there's not going to be much going on. Even if we zone it properly, we're not in charge of the water.
What do you mean you don't have the water?
Goleta Water District is not allowing any. It still has a moratorium on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And the city, they're not in control of the Goleta Water District, so.
Okay.
We can fulfill our duty to zone, but I'm not sure what we're going to do. We do have a very competent planning staff. I'm pretty impressed with them from Peter on down. They're really good people, and they do a good job, and they managed to guide us through the zoning ordinance over the years, and I think we've got a pretty good code there for zoning.
Great, thank you very much.
I helped to prove it, so I would say that.
Great, thanks.
Sure.
Thank you.
If anything comes up, and you can always send us or send me via the CPA address a heads up, because I'd appreciate that.
Okay. All right. We'll do. Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie here. I've got a couple of questions on Goleta. I know for my experience with the Vandenberg Village CSD, which does the water, I think before somewhere along the line, you get part of it is ability, willingness to serve, and a certificate before a permit can be issued. Any thoughts on that? I don't know if the Goleta, Chris, is anybody from the Goleta Water Board here, or attending? Or does anybody know how that works?
So yeah, do you need the same thing in order to get a project even pretty much going in the city of Goleta? A can and will serve letter from the Goleta Water District. They have their own process that they go through. The thing is that the voters in Goleta and Goleta Water District, if I'm not mistaken, voted by initiative to put limitations on when we have a moratorium and when we don't. And I think one of them was that we have to be back up to 100% of the allocation from Lake Cachuma. And then the groundwater basin also has to be up to a certain percentage recharged. And there's a couple others. All I know is that right now, despite the reasonable rainfall we've had, we're not at that point yet. So.
Good. One more question.
I can explain a little bit there. Ed pretty much had it, but it was a voter enacted initiative to make sure that there would be a long-term water supply available. So new construction to get a can and will serve letter. And then there are projects that in Goleta that pre-moratorium were sort of grandfathered in a little bit of way. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there, but there's not a lot.
Not anymore, and most of those projects have been built, I believe. So there's not much coming up.
I think there's one more big one, but it's got no potential. Nobody's looking at it at this point.
Well, there's the one on the apartments on Corona Del Mar or something, in the research park, right in the corner between Stork and the 101. That's under construction. They had a pre-moratorium can and will serve, and they got their approvals before I was on the planning commission. Yeah, you're right. I think there might be another one out there too, but they're under construction.
It's not a significant number, but they do have to have a can and will serve letter, and that's been one of the issues with the whole development in the Goleta Valley is
since 1974.
The general plan isn't, to build out the general plan, there isn't sufficient water. And so long history there.
Yeah. One more.
Thank you. We really need to move a little bit because I want to give everybody a chance to, say something. Thank you, Ed, for all that information.
Any thought of including what's called Nolita in Goleta?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Not at this time. No.
I understand that's the area between the city of Goleta and Santa Barbara.
Right.
That's
okay. Okay, thank you. We need to move on here. Sheila, could you speak a little bit about your book and so any issue you want to talk about as far in Santa Barbara City?
Okay, I'll be glad to. I've been working on a brief history of urban planning in Santa Barbara since 2003. And I finally declared it done. Okay, it came a point where I had to just stop doing research. Well, this is a proof copy. This is it.
Right.
Let's see, is it showing? There we go. An uncommonplace American town. And it's being published by a local publisher, Olympus Press, and should be available by the end of October on Amazon as a paperback and also as an ebook. I'd like to read the short introduction that explains why I started writing this. In 1982, I was in a rare book bookstore chatting with the owner about my interest in collecting books about Santa Barbara. He asked if I had a copy of the Works Project Administration Guide to Santa Barbara, published in 1941. I did not. He found a copy for me and I bought it. When I got to page 43, I found this quote from a newspaper editorial, and some of you will have heard this. The old landmarks and most charming characteristics of Santa Barbara are disappearing before the march of, quote, improvement, unquote. And though our practical people cannot move the mountains nor change the scenes or spoil the climate, they are doing all they can to despoil the quaint beauty of the place and make it just a commonplace American town. when I ask people when they think this might have been published, remember it was a newspaper editorial, they usually think of sometime in the 1930s. Well, it was 1984, January 2nd, 1884. I was astounded. 1874. Sorry for screwing up the numbers. Santa Barbara has a long history of civic activism around how it developed. I had no idea what went back so far. What is it about Santa Barbara that has made its residents so concerned about the way it developed? What has made Santa Barbara what it is? The answer lies in part in the city's beautiful setting between the mountains and the sea, one of the most temperate climates in the world, and many strong-minded individuals and government officials who care deeply about this place. They fought against the commonplace. Citizens Planning Association for 60 years has been in this fight, fighting against the commonplace. But things are getting rather difficult because it was mentioned by someone else earlier, the state legislation. 105 years ago, in 1915, the state of California, the legislature adopted a law authorizing planning commissions and the development of general plans that would lay out how communities would develop. However, over the last few years, the state legislature has been busily taking away local communities' ability to do their own planning. It sort of began with the first of the accessory dwelling unit laws, which required local governments to permit them just about everywhere with very little local control. That was the beginning of the removal of single-family zoning. Yesterday, Dan Walters, a long-time California journalist covering what's going on in Sacramento, talked about what was happening at the 6th Annual Santa Barbara Coastal Housing Conference. And anything to promote the construction of housing is acceptable, including disregard of safety issues. In 2017, the legislation adopted requiring cities to adopt dwelling unit ADUs did allow them to restrict them in high fire hazard zones. But a new ADU ordinance went into effect at the beginning of this year, of 2019, I believe, which doesn't allow that. So they have to be allowed anywhere and everywhere with very little control, and allowing, what used to be required, open yard, doesn't matter anymore. That can be used for additional housing. Then what was just before the legislature, just before it ended, up until like 3 minutes to midnight of the last day of the session, it did away with single-family zoning entirely by allowing just about any single-family lot to be divided into 2 parcels and a duplex to be built on each of those parcels. And it did not allow any restrictions in high fire hazard zones. And I'm sure you all remember Paradise and the 85 fatalities there because people couldn't get out in time. And of course, there have been at least 26 more, and the fires, that some of which are still burning because people can't get out in time. And of course, Santa Barbara's got a lot of territory that's in high fire hazard zones, particularly the foothill area, which includes the Riviera and the area behind it. The only reason it didn't get past this session is because time ran out, and that was as a result of a spat between the Assembly Speaker and the Senate President over procedure. You may have heard about the Assembly member who came racing in with her 1 or 2 month infant over her shoulder from her home community, I think it was Berkeley, because the assembly speaker wouldn't allow people to vote remotely, while that had been allowed in the Senate. And that's the only thing it would have passed otherwise. It would have to go back to the Senate. So for now it's dead, but I'm sure it will be back. And the questions, the responses to the questions that were asked of Dan Walters, like Walter, for example, was just brought up. He said, oh, you know, there are millions of acre feet that go to agriculture, and some of that could just be taken for urban uses where, you know, individuals, you know, it's not a problem. It's an engineering problem of getting the water to where it's needed. But his attitude, and I suspect it may reflect a lot of the legislators' attitudes, is that that's not an issue. Now, Goleta's in a different situation because of the measure that was passed some years ago, which requires the Goleta Water District to not issue can and will serve letters if there isn't a sufficient supply. So when someone else asked, actually the person who asked is a former planner, retired planner from the city of Santa Barbara, what about where it just, people are concerned about changing the character of Santa Barbara. I mean, his response was, that's a typical NIMBY response, he says. You know, he says, I understand, you know, you want to keep things the way they are, but housing has to be built. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. I think it's going to be a tough fight to keep what we love about Santa Barbara. Thank you.
Well, thanks for fighting, Sheila.
Pardon me?
Thank you for fighting.
Well, Ed has his hand up.
Okay.
I'm applauding you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
I have a question, Sheila.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, so much of your book, and so, I mean, I think is honors the people who came before us, came even before you in planning. And certainly CPA was filled with people who were extremely active. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts as to why it's so difficult now to get people to be active.
Well, that's a good question, and I'm not sure that I know. I know I was involved with Citizen Planning Association and the League of Women Voters, which was also, you know, a strong force for sound community planning in Santa Barbara County. And it seemed, at least with the League, that as times changed and more women went to work or had to work, they didn't have the time to be involved. One of the things that I've noticed is that I hate to use the phrase, what made Santa Barbara great was community involvement.
Right.
There was really a sense of community, a sense of place, and a sense of community, and a sense of commitment to what was here, and, you know, how to make it better. And that seems to have gone.
It's being run over roughshod by the quote unquote housing crisis.
Yeah, well, that's part of it, but it began even before that. Although the earliest reference to a housing crisis in Santa Barbara that I found was in the minutes for the city council in the 1930s. Wow. They were talking about the housing crisis and the water crisis. So it's like
nothing new.
Yeah, the Santa Barbara has never been without a water or housing crisis.
There you go.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a quick question for Sheila. Is there any chance of having this available in some of our local bookstores, such as Chaucer's or in Lompoc, the bookstore?
Oh, yes, it definitely will be in Chaucer's, and I'm sure the Historical Museum will have it in their gift shop, and I've already been asked to have it at the...
Are you familiar with the bookstore in Lompoc? It's a great little independent bookstore.
Oh, well, thank you for letting me know about it. Yes, I'd be happy to have it there.
Yeah, Leslie
Let's do that offline, Charlie. Maybe we can do that offline.
Okay.
Thanks. We'll get you in touch with Sheila.
Yeah, and I know her too. Okay, thank you very much, Sheila. Good luck with the book. Okay, Ken, would you like to speak next? I had only planned an hour for the whole event, but we certainly go a little bit further, but do think of our time limitations, and because I'd like to hear, Kaylon is also going to speak.
Okay.
And any other time we have, we can let other people speak up then too.
So,
Ken.
Thank you. So Morel asked me if I would speak about all the oil issues that we've been dealing with, and I could, but I'd rather not right now. If anybody wants to hear about the offshore oil, the onshore oil, and what's going on with Phillips 66 and shutting down the refinery here, that's all big news, and you may have already read about it because the Independent reported on it. So it may be old news, and I think if I have 2 or 3 minutes, I want to mention that Santa Maria, and this is maybe more relevant to what CPA has been about for 60 years. In Santa Maria, they're updating the general plan, and a lot of people in city government, most of the council members, I think, are wanting to expand the sphere of influence out into, if you expand, you're out into prime ag land, pretty much. There's almost nowhere to go other than into prime ag. So SBCAN is interested to see to the extent that we need to increase the size of the city, of the housing stock and so forth. It should go up or otherwise fill in where it can, rather than to go out into prime ag. And so I think this is going to be, over the next few years, one of the biggest things that SBCAN will be fighting for. And I don't feel like we have a lot of allies. And maybe CPA would be one of those. And then the other one is in Lompoc, which is on the west side of town. And we've been fighting this. I've been here 8 years now on this job. I thought I'd do it for 1 year or 6 months when Joyce Howerton recruited me, but it's too much fun. And so anyways, we've been fighting this battle in Lompoc since way before I started, on the west side of town, where the city wants to annex and build houses and so forth in prime ag land. And where will it end? How far would it keep going? But it doesn't need to go any further. There's room to grow in Lompoc, and it's been evidenced by the studies that have been done by the Council of Governments. And so that's one we've been fighting. That's going to be before the Local Agency Formation Commission. It is, I think, before them now. I don't know when they're going to hear it. And I don't know who wants to actually build houses out there. I don't know if there's a market for it. So anyway, Santa Maria and Lompoc, those are two things that we try to pick things to work on that others maybe aren't working on. And these are two things that I don't see a lot of other organizations stepping up.
Yeah.
And then,
maybe if I can, in the sphere of influence in the city of Santa Maria has been an ongoing issue for many years. And I think it's something that CPA is right in their alley to deal with. There's also a sphere of influence, depending upon what happens with the Buellton City Council race coming up. That could be, they're now making noises about wanting to, there's an urban growth boundary line that goes until 2025, but now they're talking about the need, as they're planning forward, that they didn't have enough sphere of influence to impact with the cannabis grows outside of the city. So there's an effort to use that as a way to increase the sphere of influence, which of course is where you want your growth boundaries to go. And in terms of the Bailey Road annexation, the city of Lompoc, CPA has been on the forefront of that with Joyce Howerton and long years, and Morel's been there at many of the things, and it's really a question. I'm not sure what's happening with the LAFCO executive director search. I know they interviewed. I don't know if they've hired or offered a job to anybody, but that's of critical importance to all of us. And we've been at CPA have been monitoring that as well. I think there's a lot that CPA and SBCAN have in common on a lot of these things. And as a board member, I think that's something we should be working together with.
I agree.
Thank you. I agree.
It's ironic in a way because Santa Barbara is, some in Santa Barbara at least, are fighting increased heights, and yet increased heights in Santa Maria would seem to be a very sensible thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very different populations, and most of Santa Maria is one story, not
exactly right.
And they tore down their central business district and built a mall many years ago. So their historic district.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ken. And I think our board, many times I do report, I'm in touch with Ken and SPCAN members, quite a bit during the month. And so I think our working relationship is good. I think we need to do more together. And I especially appreciate SPCAN's work on the oil projects, even though right now we're in a little bit of a lull. We know that doesn't happen. So thank you to SPCAN.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Kaylon, do you want to talk a little bit about the Gaviota Coast? We're getting through the whole county here. Okay, unmute. Yeah, unmute.
Some of you know that CPA was one of the charter organizations that put together the Naples Coalition for the preservation of the Santa Barbara Ranch. And that goes back, I don't know, 15 years or so. And that we engaged in a number of battles about that. And then things became very quiet, relatively quiet, largely because the marketplace for large, expensive sections of land on the Gaviota Coast dried up. There just wasn't a demand for that. So what we decide to do was, since the Naples Coalition in a sense lost its reason for existence, we decided to merge with the Gaviota Coastal Conservancy, which we did. Some of our Naples people went on to the Gaviota Coastal Conservancy as either board members or committee members. And there's a lot happening in the Gaviota Coast. I wrote down about 4 things I could talk about, and I'm going to just mention them by name, and you tell me which one you'd like me to spend 2 minutes on. So the Vandenberg Air Force Base golf course proposal. The second one will be Naples, or where that stands. Third would be Barone Ranch, which is possibly more interesting to me because it's hiking and riding opportunities there. And then lastly, the Hollister Ranch Association status there. Meryl, what would you like to hear from me?
Well, we're news about the 5 golf courses that are supposed to be developed out on Vandenberg Air Force Base is pretty shocking. I thought they were up at our end of, in the north, but it's, could you just talk, are there actually golf courses planned along the Gaviota Coast?
Well, this is on the Vandenberg property, and of course that's Air Force owned, so all of our planning procedures, et cetera, don't really have any relevance there. What may have some relevance is the Coastal Commission. And they have a proposal to bring in a private developer. And as you hear this, you cannot help but think of the current administration in Washington who develops golf courses. Private party to develop 5 golf courses, a lodge, and 65 to 75 cottages on there. Probably open in part to the public. The details aren't very clear at this point. It's on 1,200 acres of undeveloped land on the base right now. We've got very much a difference of opinion as to what needs to happen next. And it's from their viewpoint, and I say theirs, that's the Air Force, they just want to have a little bit of environmental scoping, but don't feel there's need for much beyond that. The Coastal Commission staff has weighed in on this informally and said, no, we need a lot more than that to look at this proposal. What will happen is not known. If the current administration goes away in November, it's anticipated that this project will probably go away too. But maybe it might be just wishful thinking, I don't know.
Alan, is it a temporary enough status that it might go away at the end of January?
No, that's just speculation. That the project doesn't pencil out to most of us as even a reasonable investment. 5 new golf courses, part of the county. Well, you're not paying anything for the land. Maybe you can get away with doing that. But so what we're doing is working with the Coastal Commission staff, and they have a potential legal entree into this, and pushing for the development of a full EIS on this project before there's any real progress on it. So early stages, it's kind of shocking to hear about that larger project, that much residential housing, and along with recreational golf courses, but that is what the proposal is.
I would like to hear Kaylin on the Barone Ranch. I don't know much about that proposal, but I know the parts of the ranch.
Yeah, well, okay, Barone is, there's 2 things I'd say about Barone. I've spent many years, over 10 years, working at Barone in the development of hiking trails and public access on that property. It's a piece of property owned by the county, administered by Public Works, who it's right next to, for those of you who don't know where Barone is, it's right next to the recycling dump area, reprocessing area. And from the very beginning, the council, the Board of Supervisors, said that this it's owned by the county. Let's make it a open to the public. Let's have public access and hiking opportunities on that property. And we have built some couple of trails, but Public Works in particular is dragging their feet shamelessly, in my view, on the project. They are not trails oriented. They're the public oriented. They would like this piece of property just to stay under their bailiwick and be used, and primarily as an offset for what they do at Tehiguis, their legal obligations at Tehiguis. So we're trying to get them to get off the dime here with this, and this has gone on and on and on, and you'll be reading some newspaper articles about it in the fairly near future.
Okay, Mary, go ahead.
Just to tag on to that, there was a legal settlement regarding the landfill expansion and changeovers with the materials recovery facility going up there. And part of that settlement was to really open up this area for public use that had not been done before. And so now Parks is also involved in it, and it's not just a Public Works. So hopefully we will finally get some movement there to make it more open to the public. I know that is a big focus of Supervisor Hartman's, and it is also a focus of the Recreation Master Plan that has been in the works for some time. And I just wanted to mention that that will be coming forward very soon too. The public outreach portion of it was delayed because of the COVID, and now they have revamped that. It will allow for a lot more virtual input, meetings and other things, but they are also looking, as now we're moved into the red zone, being able to go out and actually do more public outreach regarding creating a recreation and master plan, and the trails plan is part of that, bicycle and other things. And so in the next few months, there will be some work done on that. And there is also some state monies available for recreation planning and recreation coming on. So that's...
So this does not include the La Quemada area where the Barón Adobe is, south oceanward of the highway. So what you're talking about, it's Tahiwas on the other side of the highway.
Yeah, Barón Ranch, the property only goes down to 101. There's nothing south of 101.
Right. It was purchased as a buffer for the landfill, and then has been used as kind of a mitigation bank.
Well, we've heard a lot of, or not a lot, we've heard some things about this recreational plan, and I've attended a couple of their planning meetings, and we're given dates. Well, this is when a draft proposal will be available, and then that date comes and goes. And
it has been delayed from for both an economic and a outreach perspective, but my understanding is it's starting to move forward again.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not too optimistic that it's going to accomplish the objectives that maybe the supervisors had and what Public Works has, because Public Works has got this mandate. We got to make some money on this property. We paid several millions of dollars for it, and for whatever reason, they may be getting some pressure, I don't know, but they think they've got to do something on the property that's going to make money. They've talked about starting ag, because they had some ag there and now they've stopped it, and don't really have enough water to restart it. But with that mindset that's about making money rather than serving the public, it's going to be a bit of a battle.
No struggle. Okay, thank you, Kaylon.
Morel, maybe CPA can keep an eye on this and maybe write an encouraging letter to the supervisor.
Sure. I hope, when we get our good minutes, Betsy's listing this roundtable is creating our agenda probably for the coming year. Betsy,
I'd like for a minute, Kaylin, if you would say something about the Hollister Ranch Association.
There is a HROA that's formed. It has representatives of a number of state agencies, county. It has representatives from the Hollister Ranch people themselves, and it has representatives from a handful of environmental organizations. So it's at least on paper, is a pretty widely based organization, and they've got very, very dissimilar bottom lines. Whether they can come together and come up with something that's helpful here, I don't know, but they are meeting regularly. I actually applied to be part of that committee, and they had more applications than they could accept. So I'm following it by virtue of the fact that our Gaviota Coast Conservancy executive officer is part of the committee.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Kaylon, for all that information. That is about all the time we have. Sally, are you still with us?
Sally just said she was signing off in the chat. But she still looks like she's here. So Sally, if you want to unmute and say anything.
Sally is actually, you know, part of the Allied neighborhoods. Is that correct, Betsy? Oh, she might have me. Okay.
CPA's representative to Allied.
She's, okay, okay, didn't know if that was, and thank you, Sally, for representing CPA on Allied neighborhoods. We appreciate that. Okay, I think then we should
Could I say a brief word, please?
Oh, yes,
I'm on
absolutely.
the agenda.
Oh, yes, you are. Okay, Mary Louise, go ahead on historic.
Well, there is a new historic resources ordinance that has been drafted. First draft came out last May. It's been requested for quite some time, partly to create a mechanism for creating more classic historic districts, partly as a sort of a buffer against the types of state legislation that Sheila was talking about. Many of these new state laws discourage this overdevelopment when it's near or involving an historic district or an historic property. Because we do have organizations that try to keep protecting historic properties in California. They decided to write a whole new ordinance, which involves a great deal, including the El Pueblo Viejo architectural landmark district. A second draft came out in September, and many of us wrote comments on it. Different people wrote from different aspects. I was very disturbed about certain things in it, and I think some work is being done to alleviate that. But at their September 16th meeting, the Historic Landmarks Commission did not allow enough time to talk it over. In my estimation, it was poor staff work in putting the first discussion of this second draft of the ordinance after a very lengthy landmark hearing and some other landmark structure of merit designations. That day they designated or recommended designation of the La Casa de la Raza building as a city landmark. So of course there was a great deal of public discussion on that, and that used up much of the time. So the commission made what I considered an ill-considered motion to take some of the public comment in writing and some of the comments they had made to send it on to the city council. Unfortunately, there were many parts of it they did not discuss, and they had a motion involving the architectural styles required in El Pueblo Viejo, which, as you may know, is the downtown and waterfront and the Old Mission area. We are awaiting the staff's further work on what would be a third draft, but we don't know if it will go to the HLC or if the public will really have a chance to comment on it. The ordinance will be making a stop at the Planning Commission, which would be ordinarily not be done, except that these new districts, I understand, would be created through an overlay zone process. So that's why it's going before the Planning Commission. Otherwise, that commission does not have authority over historic properties. So it could go straight to City Council without, full discussion. And Sheila was referring to people who really care and who've been active all this time, and to the admiration that Santa Barbara has had all over the world. And I can attest to that because I've traveled a lot. And people are always impressed when I say where I'm from. But if we're sloppy and we let loose wording get through, listening perhaps to one or two industries that are very active here, we could lose what makes Santa Barbara really, really special. And the worst of that could be starting to allow extreme modern architectural styles. But we don't know that till we see what the staff has come up with. I was on a couple of ad hoc committees that were created by the city council to work on these ordinances, but the staff did not have meetings of that group anymore. So it's just something that we really have to keep our eye on, and even perhaps get people in. Unfortunately, we can't have public meetings anymore. I have many friends who might be willing to write a letter, but you know, they don't want to be involved in Zoom or even to go to do public meetings. They're just appalled with some of the stuff that's being built.
Mary Louise, I'd really love it if you would write something up for CPAR, or
I haven't forgotten your request, but I felt that it's in this holding pattern now. I'd rather see what happens with draft number 3.
Well, I mean to write up something more or less in the way that you've been speaking, as sort of an outline of what the situation is. I mean, the only way we're going to get people to participate is if we reach out to them.
I agree, but I'd rather be able to say something rather than expressing my emotion about what I fear might happen. I need to see it.
If I may, there is already a second draft, and I don't think it would be harmful to bring people's attention to what's wrong with that, so that they're prepared to counter whatever if it shows up again in the third draft. You know, getting people interested in something early is not such a bad thing, in my opinion.
Thank you. Yes, we did.
I think Sheila wanted to make a comment.
We did send a couple of letters after that, but thank you.
If I remember correctly, it's scheduled to come to the Planning Commission on November 12th, I think.
Oh.
So it is very timely. So maybe what the concerns, just an outline of what the concerns are. And maybe if that's November, you said 12th, maybe that's the first Monday, November speaker series.
That's a Thursday. It's the second Thursday in November.
Okay.
Right around the corner.
That could be.
Maybe that's something the board should take up, and that would be timely. We just need to have the speakers.
Right. We could do a Zoom speaker series. Okay. Thank you, Mary Louise. I know you're our expert for historic landmarks, for sure. Okay, I think we need to wrap things up. I promised people we'd be an hour. We're a little bit over, but I think it's been a great discussion. And I certainly think everybody who's participating, I know everybody, you know, works very hard at their respective organizations. And I'm glad that we can all come together like this. And again, I think I'll go back to Betsy's request for input for CPAR. It is a wonderful vehicle going out to those 300 people. So, you know, if you need any contact information, you can, you know, get with me or the different board members that you know, and we can, you know, get this going. And
if there's people who you think would benefit from receiving CPAR and being interested in CPA, if you can either pass their names along or feel free to forward the CPAR to people and ask them to, you know, let us know if they're interested in it. We are trying to build up the membership and do those kinds of things. So
CPAR is free. It's not, you don't have to be a member to get it.
Yes, but it helps to build the membership and the involvement.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I think that's really critical. I think we had a good meeting today. Yeah. And I guess I will move that we, Sheila, you said what did you get to say what you wanted to say? Okay. And I'll move we adjourn since we are a formal meeting.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor of adjourning our first Zoom meeting at our 60th annual meeting, please say aye.
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 Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mary, for doing this. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And let's stay in touch.